Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Expert to Authority show. This is the show for coaches, speakers, and trainers who want to grow their businesses while making an impact in the world. And today, I have a really special episode because if you know anything about me, I don't take life and myself too seriously, and humor is a huge part of my life. I don't know if it is because it's in my Italian veins. I don't know. We're quite a humorous crowd here. But we are going to talk about humor in marketing and how to break through the noise without losing professionalism. Our guest today is a marketing innovator and consultant using data, AI, and humor to drive real results. As a CMO, he led companies generating 1.7 billions with a B in product volume. He has boosted performance 5x with AI and partnered with top brands in the NFL and the NHL like the LA Chargers and Anaheim Ducks, as well as a Beach Life Music Festival, bringing a high performance mindset to all his endeavors. So please welcome to the show, Ondar Tarlow. Ondar, great to have you here. Welcome.
Hey, Simone, wonderful to be here. Love the show. Thank you so much for having me as a guest.
It's my pleasure. Let's talk about humor. First of all, why is it so important? It's like, why we need humor in marketing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's one of those things where, you think about a campaign, you think about how that campaign is going to support the strategy, right? Overall, it's got to start there. And then you start thinking about how is your campaign, how is your brand going to break out? And when you start looking at, especially in financial services, which is part of my background, you start looking at the overall environment and you look at your competitors. One of the things that you'll see often is what we call a sea of sameness, right? Where literally, if you took an ad, whether it was a digital ad, social ad, print ad, whatever it is, and you looked at it and you looked at another financial services brand and you swapped logos, would anybody be able to tell the difference? And unfortunately, oftentimes the answer is no. The creativity is often a little bit reserved, a little bit conservative, and you have a lot of imagery that is very standard or stock, right, as we call it in marketing. So one of the ways that you can use to break through a lot of that sea of sameness is with humor. Humor, by its nature, is going to be very individualized. First, you need to, of course, make sure that you understand exactly what you're looking to market, what you're looking to promote. And then as you move down the entire campaign plan, how can you integrate humor if that's what you're going for? It's a great way to also have an internal rally cry among the employees and the boots on the ground that you have in your company to do something that is funny, right? People like to laugh. And if you give them that opportunity, you can start to quickly build loyalty, but you have to do it in a smart way. And one of those things you need to do is you really need to take a look and figure out exactly what media you're going to be in. What does humor look like in that media? How's it best served? Is it something that's going to be a linear TV spot? Is it going to be streaming? Are you going to create versions of it for social? And how are you going to use it on social? Is it going to be short form? Is it going to be long form? What's important is that you take a look and understand where your audience is first, where are they gathering that information? And typically it's going to be in multiple ways, right? Whether it is via their phone, whether it is on their TV or elsewhere, and then make sure that as you are designing and planning the campaign and planning the media, that you are utilizing all those important aspects in terms of being able to deliver the message. And so that's a key piece. But you also need to make sure that you're looking at it from a risk standpoint.
Yeah,
All good.
that's exactly a question that I
Yeah.
have because there are a couple of things that come to mind when you're talking about humor. Yes, of course, I get the point. It's great to cut through the noise. It's great for differentiating your brand. It's great to give also a positive feeling to someone because if I'm having a laugh about something, I can is now creating a connection between me and that brand through that laughter that we have
Exactly.
together. But now let's explore first uh, those brands or people that they say, but we're not funny. Right, because I'm
Right.
sure that you will have. It's like naturally, maybe I'm not a humorous person. I don't come up with a lot of jokes. That's not how I normally communicate. So, do I need to kind of fake to get a laugh, or can I use something else that maybe works in a different way? I'll love to explore that part first.
Yeah, absolutely. So, typically what I've done in the past is you usually need to team up with an agency that really has an expertise from a humor and a brand perspective, that they're just not delivering humor for humor's sake, right? Is that they're building it into the actual brand voice, right? Because it's important that even with humor and you're looking to get laughs, that it aligns with the brand. Because if it doesn't, then it doesn't really have, much legs, right? And then you can also get into a risky situation where the humor aspect of the advertising, let's say, does not really meet up with the overall message as far as the company is concerned. So that's an important piece. So you kind of have to look inward, and you also need to utilize partners that are adept in this space and be able to kind of come together on exactly what you're looking for. So you've got to have very strong writers that know how to be able to tell a story. That storytelling from a humorous standpoint is very key. You don't want to start off just willy-nilly taking a look and figuring out, okay, I'm going to try some humorous things. Especially when you're working for a brand, you really want to make sure that it's, as I said, aligning with that brand, and you're being able to communicate something. One of the things you mentioned is what I would say is kind of looking at it from a standard company. Maybe it's a little dry. They don't have a lot of, let's say, humor in their marketing historically. Sometimes that can be a piece that you can pull out and almost kind of poke fun at yourself, and have the audience in on that. You have to do it in a smart way. When you do that, it really lightens up the brand, to be much more, much higher feel, much higher touch, and much more interesting, especially because in today's world everyone's attention span is so low. When you're looking at social, for instance, you've got a couple of seconds to be able to drive interest. And so humor is a good way to do that. You really need to do it right in that first few seconds, depending upon the media that you're going for.
Yeah, do you have an example of maybe a brand that you've worked with that normally they would not use humor, and then you found some interesting twists or jokes or stories to incorporate that?
Sure. Yeah. So I was chief marketing officer for Pacific Premier Bank for 5 years. Great company, great people, very strong. But historically, the marketing was very straightforward. As a commercial bank, the marketing was very straightforward. So what we did is we looked at, again, what was our strategy? It was growth, it was awareness. One of the ways that we saw that we could achieve that was by integrating humor. And so, like we were saying, is we really kind of poked fun at ourselves as well as the industry, in the sense that it's a little dry, it's a little common. We are different than that, and it worked well. We were able to see increase in brand awareness across several areas, and so that's kind of one quick example of how you can utilize humor. Is that looking at who your audience is? They're smart. You want to make sure that they're part of that humor, right? You always want to make sure that you're lifting up your audience, that they're part of the joke, and then they can see how that's kind of smart and differentiated as far as your brand.
Any concrete example on that of like something that you did or something that was put out that had a good response?
Sure. Yeah. So we put out a series of spots that were both linear as well as digital. And what we did is we created a whole commercial series that was really around that sea of sameness, that kind of that dry topic. So we did a full storyboard, of course, and everything, and basically had the story, which was really about meeting with business partners, right? But as you're doing that, you're doing the same things as everyone else, and really until the end, and until we step into the picture and then showcase the joke, which was really about everyone kind of doing the same thing and we're doing something different. So that worked well, and then also became kind of an internal rally cry as well.
Yeah, so which also aligns with, so what I'm hearing you saying is that even the jokes or the campaigns, you're looking at the message of the joke that aligns with the message that also you want to deliver as part of the campaign. So as part of the campaign, you wanted to deliver that as a bank, you're different, that you're doing something different. So the joke is not just a joke for the sake of being a joke, it's also a joke that delivers that message that ultimately the campaign wants to deliver in the first place.
That's exactly right. It's exactly, Simone. So you're not delivering a joke for the joke's sake, just trying to get a punchline. You really have to weave it in to the overall brand voice, and then really the message as far as the campaign is concerned.
All right, that's great. So let's look at what can go wrong with humor because we live in a society that definitely compared to a few years ago, uh, there are way less things that you can get away with. In particular, we can see comedians. I love comedy. I do improv comedy in my spare time. I've done stand-up comedy courses. It's just like a part of thing in art that I love, that I explore, that I love watching. And I see also how the comedic world has changed in terms of what you're allowed to say, what you're not allowed to say anymore. But also, um, as a consciousness, people have changed. There are things that before they were putting up with that maybe were more offensive than a joke, and now they are just seen as offensive, and that's it. There is no joke anymore with that. So
Right.
where can humor go wrong? And do you have also another practical example of something that you have seen that actually end up being a car crash?
Mm. Yeah. So definitely anything that you're doing on the marketing side, you definitely need to take a look at it from a reputation risk standpoint. And that's often where myself and my teams will start, in the sense that as we're building a campaign, we're also looking at the risk side, especially in regulated industries, but really across the board, because brand reputation, of course, is one of the biggest risks that's out there. And so it's important that you're not doing this in a bubble, right? You need to be able to have time to create and work with the creative team, work with the agency that you're partnering with. But you also want to have, a little bit of a checks and balances. So there's a thing called compliance, right? So in financial services, as well as other regulated industries and so forth, you're working with a compliance team, and you really want to partner up with them in a great way and bring them on board early. So it's not something you want to leave for the last minute. You want to bring them on board early. You want to explain what the entire campaign is about, how it's working, and then whether there's humor or not, they're going to need to review it. But if there's something that you're doing that's a little bit edgy, you definitely want to get some feedback there as well. But smart marketers, the audience that you have, knows that you can't go it alone. You need to figure out exactly who you're partnering with, and then you also need to make sure that you're basically on brand voice as well, because there are a lot of opportunities for risk, as you were mentioning. So you need to make sure that the tone is set properly. One of the ways that we've done this in the past, as I mentioned, is we made fun of ourselves, right? We were part of the joke. So it's not as though we were making fun of a specific group or area, which never works. It's really about, how is there some fun involved that you can include and integrate your audience in? And that really is what makes the difference. But the series of car crashes, train derailments, in what you're saying as far as humor is concerned, there's a lot of classic examples.
Um, there is the concept that you said that I would love to expand a bit more on, which is self-deprecation. And I love it for you if you have any specific example or a framework or people that don't know where to start with that. Because I think that self-deprecation and self-humor is the safest way, as you mentioned as well, because no one can attack you for making fun of yourself. No one can say, no, don't say those things about yourself. Is that if you say things about another group of people that you are not, is different. But I know, for example, people introduce me as I do a lot of public speaking, and sometimes in the introductions I will have, and welcome the Italian stallion, Simone Vincenzi. and I'm very short. So it ain't nothing about a stallion about my height. And so one of the jokes I will say is, well, they introduced me as the Italian stallion, but here you got the Italian pony. That's often one of the ways in which I will start some of my talks and gets everyone to laugh, because definitely the pony matches the size that I have. And I will use a lot of these things in terms of making jokes of my Italian heritage, or fact of we articulate a lot, or we are all over the place, that we are quite lazy, we don't want to work too hard, that we might take an espresso every 5 minutes instead of having an important meeting. And I try to make them part of my marketing and my jokes. So I see the power of that. For people that don't know where to start in terms of self-deprecation and or brands in particular, that they might be a bit concerned as well, what could be a good starting point?
Yeah, so I'd say, first off, if it's not something that's coming, naturally, when you are planning or designing the campaign, that is a question for you. Does humor make sense for the campaign? There are some types of campaigns or some types of products where humor does not make sense, and you need to make sure that you're understanding, again, not only your product, your brand, the strategy, but also your audience as well. And so that's kind of the first piece. But in terms of kind of looking at yourself and looking at an industry and kind of poking fun at yourself, is looking at how the company or the industry, right, is viewed from the outside. And so there's a bit of research involved. There's a bit of focus groups involved, and understanding, which avenue may make sense more than another. And when I say focus groups, I don't mean necessarily just the traditional focus groups, but also digital focus groups where you can be able to get out various examples of your creative and be able to get a return and response in terms of what the impact, what the input is, what the reaction is, what the resonance is, as far as the campaigns that you're doing. So there's a lot of test and learn early before you are done, package it up, and then distribute it out to your audience or audiences. That's key. But understanding exactly what your industry is known for, what you as a company is known for, and is there an opportunity to kind of break through that, especially if you're looking for, or you're doing a product launch, right? Is this the time to now kind of break through and kind of get rid of the old and kind of into the new? Humor can be a great way to achieve that.
And how did you, talking about, I want to switch gear a bit. I'd love to understand a bit more about you, and how did you get to do what you do? Because you've managed like huge campaigns, right, for big brands, large projects. What got you to that point? What got you to do what you do now?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. I started really more on the business side of things early in my career, learning about the products and services, as an example, within the financial services vertical, or lifestyle, or packaged goods vertical first. But I always had a passion for marketing. My background from an education standpoint is both business as well as psychology. So marketing really ties into that really well. Um, I'm part of the generation that's digital as well as analog. So that's kind of how my brain works from both sides, which is really helpful as well, because you're crossing so many different audiences. And as I moved forward in my career, I really took opportunities, any opportunity there was, to look at how I could be involved in marketing on a team, and then moving from a team to more of a senior role. But everything that I've done, I've always been fairly hands-on as well. I let the team work and be creative and execution, of course, but I always want to be involved. And so my career has moved forward in that direction from marketing side, I believe, because I have both the marketing experience, but also the business side, and it's really a blend. But then from there, it's really about people, and it's about the teams that I've been lucky enough to be a part of, as well as the internal teams, as well as agencies that I've worked with. I've worked with a lot of talented people, And one way to continue to work with talented people and put out great work is to have fun. And humor is a great way to do that. Now, I've also been on the side of marketing from a comms perspective and crisis communications, which is not humorous at all. And so that side of things has been always interesting for me as well, because being able to connect with your customers, be able to connect with the public in times of crisis is critical. And then being able to then switch and take the hat off and then move, back to more of the marketing creative side is also fun. So, I like both sides of the spectrum, and being able to leverage all of the work as well as expertise I've been able to develop and work with a lot of great teams to get here. But what I would say is, as to your audience, is if you're looking to continue to move up on the marketing side, is there's a bit of chances you have to take as well. You need to take the opportunities that are given. You need to ask the right questions, stay curious, and make sure that you get involved in projects that you're passionate about. The passion is really what is enabling you to be able to propel yourself forward.
Yeah, in particular in something so creative like marketing. In fact, I'd love to know from you if you can give me like something, if you can think about a project. You probably you've been involved in many marketing campaigns, working with different brands, different teams, and there are some projects that maybe have a great place in your heart, or when you think about them, you might be incredibly proud. It could be either for the end result or the experience that you had by working with that team. Is there a particular project that comes to mind? And if you can give a bit more specific on that.
Sure. So as I was working for Connecta, we did a series of campaigns to support growth and brand awareness, and it was really all under the tagline of "Banking Done Different." And "Banking Done Different" in and of itself, it was a tagline that was built years before I got there, but slightly off, from a proper English style. And so we use that from the "Banking Done Different" to really "Banking Done Differently" as a means by which, as we were talking about earlier, to kind of poke fun at ourselves, but also bring the audience in on the joke. Working with the internal teams as well as our agencies to be able to produce that was a great experience. It was probably the first time I'd ever been in a board meeting where the board laughed. So that was wonderful as well. That gave me a lot of pleasure, and my team pleasure, to be able to make people laugh, right? And to be able to share that with the world.
Yeah, is anything in particular that you learned from that experience that you took with you with other projects, or you're taking with you even the work that they're doing now?
Yeah, so definitely is involve the teams that you're going to be working with internally as early as makes sense. Once you have a concept developed, making sure that you're communicating how it's aligning with a strategy, making sure that you've got an outcome that you're looking for. What are those performance metrics that you're going to be able to judge the campaign by? And then going from there, being able to package it up in a proper launch across multiple media. So as we were talking about, digital, social, outdoor, web, activations, taking what you've done in that campaign and rolling it up as far as brand integrations with sponsorships that you may have in professional sports is a great way to do it as well. So you really need to take a look at the totality of what you're looking to achieve and make sure you have the media there and that you're teaming up with the right folks to be able to deliver it.
Yeah, I'm curious about the analytics part of it, like measurement, because when you are doing different campaigns, some campaigns will give you great brand awareness, which it is very difficult sometimes to measure in terms of like hard data or like ROI, return on investment that you might make. And then you have campaigns which are where metrics are more clear cut. Is like this gives us X amount of new inquiries or new people in our database or website visit, depending on what the goal of the campaign is. When you think about a campaign, how do you then measure the success of the campaigns, and how do you set up the campaign from the get-go so then you are not kind of optimized, but then yeah, it's optimized for these measurements that you want to get.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, you need to start off with making sure that your performance metrics are part of the plan, right? What is a goal to achieve? And then what media are you using? And then being able to utilize metrics from that media to determine, whether things are working, whether you need to make adjustments, right? And there's a lot of test and learn that you need to do. One of the easiest ways to do that is utilizing social media, utilizing platforms that you can get content and messaging out very quickly and be able to judge a response as well. And that's a kind of a good entry point. If you are launching a campaign and seeing how does it resonate, with your audience before you do a full launch. And so you want to take a look at, the key indicators, for instance, like engagement and sentiment in social, to be able to figure out, is this something that is working? Does it have legs? Before you kind of put it out to the world with no testing. And testing is really important. The same goes for if you're doing digital, or if you're doing something that you have a call to action directly to a website or landing pages. You want to judge to see how many conversions you had, and then how are those conversions all the way looking through the funnel. So you really want to take a look at your funnel, right? And what are the metrics in terms of performance that you're judging that funnel by, and that overall business. And it's an important piece as well, because you have to take a look at it from a marketing standpoint, and then also kind of from a financial and operational perspective as well. And that's where teaming up with others is incredibly important. So not just looking at it from marketing success, but then how is it being viewed internally, from an overall growth perspective as well.
And I guess that based on what you said at the beginning, going back to the beginning of the conversation, that's where your unique background comes in. You can understand the creative aspect of marketing, but also you can understand the financial aspect of it. Because sometimes you can have great campaigns that they create a lot of buzz, but they don't bring much. And you might sometimes kill some campaigns that on the outside doesn't look like they're giving much, but actually they're driving a lot of conversions and the right metrics from a conversion point of view.
Exactly. Yep.
All right, so this has been an incredible interview. Any final message that you want to leave people with that have been listening or watching about this so far? And also, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, thank you, Simone. So first of all, really appreciate being on the show. It's been wonderful. What I would say is that if you're interested in marketing, depending upon where your career is at today, and really have the passion and pursue what you're passionate about and what makes you happy. There's always going to be business involved, but what's so important is that you continue to move forward in a positive direction and exactly what you're passionate about. And you can find me on LinkedIn. So Ondar Tarlow on LinkedIn, as well as my website, ondartarlow.com.
All right, so all the LinkedIn profile is in the show notes, and also the website ondartarlow.com is also in the show notes. You can scroll down and make sure you connect with Ondar. Ondar, it's been great to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simone. It was wonderful. Really appreciate it.
All right, everyone, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Few things if you have not done them. Number one, make sure you subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. And then two, leave us a good review. 5 stars is possible. They're good for the guests, they're good for the show, and they're good for my ego. So make sure you do that right now. And until next time, always remember that together we grow exponentially. Ciao.